Hudson. Goal.
Hello and welcome to From the BOLN, the Burnley podcast. This is the post-Aston Villa episode. The Clarets going down 3-1 to Aston Villa at Turf Moor on Sunday. Slightly depleted lineup tonight. Simon, our glorious leader, isn't so well. We wish him all the best. He's got the dreaded Rona over in Miami. I think it's probably worse places to be with COVID than Miami. He's probably got him out of doing the cricket again, hasn't he? So there we go. But I'm joined as ever by Woody, by Justin and by Chris. Let's get straight into the Villa game then. Another defeat. Probably a game of two halves and probably a second half of two halves. Woody, what were your kind of views on how that played out? Because we were quite slow to get go, conceded inside 10 minutes again, but they were flashes, weren't they?
There were slightly more flashes, I think, than against City. But I think, like we've all said, the first half was bizarrely flat. Then second half, yes, came out, gave an account of ourselves for 10 minutes, scored, they scored, and it all went flat again. And yeah, on the TV over here, even though it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, it was a big, difficult game to kind of get behind. Because as we've seen in a lot of other Premier League games over the years, you know you're on a hand to nothing. And you knew pretty soon that we weren't really in that game. And yeah, that's pretty much it from the stateside.
Yeah, and Justin, Villa are a good side, aren't they? I fully expect Villa will be top six. I think we were talking on last week's Friday's episode, about them, people probably being a little bit more worried about Villa than they were against City because of the expectation that we might get something against Villa. They look a good side, but we didn't. We kind of gave them a bit of help, didn't we? Conceding again so early on.
Yeah, you can't do that in the Premier League, can you? You can't give people a goal start before you even get going. From my perspective, I just thought I was a bit baffled by a few things. I think it's really, we've got this really risky formation going on when we're playing, 4 up front when we haven't got the ball and 5 up front when we have. It just seems like if you get turned over, when you're on the front foot in the final third, you've already got 5 players the wrong side of the ball, and then our sort of defensive shield in front of what was then a back 3 was Cullen and Roberts. Well, they're not the quickest. They're not the most. They're not going to be able to respond to counter-attacks as well as you might expect. And that's what happened for the first goal. And it was just a simple clip over the top to a rapid forward. I think Trafford hesitated a little bit. He didn't quite know what to do, did he? You just can't do that. And you might get away with that in the Championship, but in the Premier League, you're just going to get punished. And obviously it was a goal. I thought, in the second half, they obviously got a bit of a bollocking at half time, didn't they? Because they came out, played. He made that little switch of putting Delcroix in the middle and moving Roberts over to the left, and Roberts was still the full back who was stepping into midfield when we got the ball. But they played sort of the same way, but they just seemed to have a bit more intent about it. They seemed to just believe in it a little bit more. And when we got that goal, I was thinking, right, it's now seems to be clicking in a way, but we're just so vulnerable with that risky sort of committing so many men forward that, we seem to make it easy for them. And then obviously they can just sit back, slow the game down, wait for their opportunity to nick the ball back again. And, it's up the other end and in the back of the net and everything's flat in the ground again. It was just, I don't know, it was a strange game to me. There's just so many so many questions about how they set up and who they pick that don't seem to have an obvious answer, I don't think.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, Justin, we'll touch on a couple of things Justin mentioned there, and I agree. I think there is a bit of a, I mean, it's a very, very risky strategy, very risky kind of setup. But just wanted to touch on that James Trafford comment that Justin mentioned there. I mean, again, it might be me being uber critical, but I think there's almost two issues with Trafford for that first goal. I think his starting position is a little bit too passive. I don't think he's committed one way or another. And then when Ollie Watkins runs the ball in front of him, Ollie Watkins takes a really heavy touch. There's a hesitancy for Trafford to come out and smother. Now, I'm not saying Muric, this is not going to turn into a Muric versus Trafford debate, but, they're the kind of fine margins when it comes to kind of goalkeeping and, starting position and ability to react quickly. And, Mike Phelan told us on this podcast that the difference between the Premier League top players is that ability to make decisions and consistently make them decisions. What did you make of that first goal, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're looking at it. It's a terrific ball from McGinn. We all talk about the recovery speed of Alderweireld, and it's so hard to match. Watkins on his bike, and he knows what's coming, and Alderweireld's slow to read it. He's got pace, but Watkins, he's turned on his turbo there and burnt him off as such. But let's say once then, it's a horrible touch, really heavy touch, and you're expecting Trafford to come out and claim that and smother the danger. And he does. Well, he either makes a barrier of it, to make a save, or he's quick enough off his line to come and smother. And Delcroix, within this 10 minutes of his debut, he's caught cold at the far post as well. But he's made good saves in the first couple of games, Trafford, and the stop from Watkins in the second half. I mean, Watkins probably should score, but he's prevented it, being a heavy defeat there. But and on the face of it, I don't think his distribution is decent. I don't think it's as good as Muric is at the moment. And we all know Muric had his moments last year. You remember the Watford game when he came out and made a pig's ear of things and made things difficult in that game, and ended up getting hauled off at half time, etc., etc. But at the moment, Trafford's clearly, it's a big step. He's gone from, we'll speak about, he's not playing higher than League One. He's played, very, very good standard of international football, the Euros with the under-21s, and done exceptionally well. But it's difficult for him to bed in when it's going to be, it's going to be like the Alamo most weeks, isn't it? Against especially against the top tier sides.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Woody as well, one of the things that I kind of noticed, and it's kind of what we did last season. You've got, Benson last season and Zarori were so tight to the line. Benson make them kind of runs but not get the service in the first half. Then in the second half, we were hitting Benson and things like that. I saw that with Koleosho. He was looking in space. He had grass to run into, but we didn't quite ever activate that ball over the top to him. Do you think that kind of, again, without harking back to last season, the distribution of Harwood Bellis, obviously Bear missing, we know what a good distributor he is. Do you think that we missed a bit of a trick by not getting that kind of, that ball out quickly to wingers we have to run into?
I mean, you can say that, but also with the Benson thing, it was quite apparent in the first half that they were doubling up and even had cover on Benson, which a lot of the time last year, we were always kind of constantly saying, why the devil are people not doubling up on Benson? Whereas Aston Villa did it, John McGinn pulled back, and he was always having to turn and look for a ball behind him. But yes, with the game being slightly quicker, I don't think Harwood Bellis would necessarily have that same amount of time on the ball to be able to pick that pass, and they could isolate him and it could, all go slightly awry. But yeah, been able to pick that pass, being able to do that slightly quicker, it all felt very, very slow in that first half. Yeah, we sped up a little bit in the first 15, in the second half, and yes, it looked better, especially Berger pushing a little bit further forward, which a lot of people have said that's his better position. But yeah, just somebody to be able to take a look and ping that ball over, because Aston Villa weren't coming at us like lunatics. They weren't all over us. They were picking the moments, and they just beat us at a canter, really, at the end of the day. But yeah, Koleosho looked industrious without, and I think it might have been you said it, Greasy, that without much finesse. And yeah, he kind of created the goal, etc. But yeah, you'd like somebody in the middle of the park or somewhere to be able to find and pick that ball from somewhere.
Yeah, and just picking up on let's have a look then, Justin, at the kind of front four, if you will. We had Foster scored his first Premier League goal. He's a 1 in 2 Premier League, 1 in 2 striker now in the Premier League, which was good. Amdouni again, flashes from Amdouni, perhaps a bit ineffective, didn't really kind of get into it. Came off at half time, still not convinced he's fully fit. And Koleosho, is there enough kind of to see that actually that worry that we're not going to have enough goals or enough creativity of the high quality? Did you see enough in Sunday's performance to suggest that those worries were unfounded, or are you still a little bit worried that we've got a collection of players who are all very interchangeable?
I think we said of the City game, it was quite difficult to gauge just how effective we were going to be in an attacking sense, because we just didn't see enough of the ball in that game. There wasn't enough opportunities. We saw a lot more of the ball in this game. I think obviously their game plan was to sit back, let us have it, and just see what we could do. And I actually came away from that game being more worried that we didn't have the firepower to get through these teams. I think it's all about when you've got the ball as much as we had in that game. There was a lot of passing sideways. There was a lot of going back and trying a different avenue. But when they sit deep, it's more difficult to get behind them, isn't it? It's more difficult to clip that ball over and get the wingers into the game. You've just got to move the ball more quickly, and I think move it side to side more quickly, so you pull them out of shape a little bit, and that's where you get your opportunities. That's where you get the gaps that you can exploit. But we just didn't do that in the first half. Like Woody said, it was all too slow. It was just ponderous, and they were just sat there going, "All right, this is all you've got. We've got nothing to worry about." I don't think that we had a shot on target in the first half, did we? According to the stats, we had 2 shots on target, one of which will be the goal. The other will have been Delcroix.
Doing the effort just over the bar first half. I don't think we tested Olsen in that first 45, did we?
No, there was Delcroix's header that was a pretty smart save, actually. If that had gone in, that might have been, turned it in a different direction. But they could just sit there and pick us off. They just had to wait until they turned possession over at the right moment. They've got the pace to do damage. That's the key to me, moving it more quickly, and that's what they did when they came out the second half. More intent, more more snappy passing. You drag defenders around out of position, and that's how you beat that game plan. But I don't know. Is it the personnel, or is it the way that they play? It's difficult to tell, isn't it? Well, I suppose that'll unfold as the season goes on. We'll probably talk about it later, but it's unlikely this is going to be the squad we're going to end up with, at the end of next week. So hopefully we can bring in some more quality in some of those kind of players that, unlike Koleosho, who's got that raw pace, hasn't he? But there's not really much at the end of it. It seems, or certainly not in the 2 games we've had. But and we have to remember that it's only 2 games, isn't it? It's not time to hit the panic button yet. But I think I said after the City game, with that sort of high press that we do, where we harass the back line, a lot of teams won't be able to cope with that. I'm not sure that's true, having seen us do it against a team that obviously knows how to play against that kind of team. So overall, I was a bit more worried about our ability to create chances after that than I was after the City game.
Yeah, and Chris, just kind of touching on that, not testing Olsen. We know that Olsen, he's not as good as Martinez, obviously. It was kind of a missed opportunity. I mean, I think we looked a lot better when Jay came on. I know Jay had a couple of chances that still didn't test him. At some point, we're going to have to find a way of testing some of these Premier League goalkeepers on a more consistent basis, aren't we?
Absolutely. But you say, bear in mind, we've seen Zarori for a moment in the first game. We've seen Benson for 45 minutes. We're yet to see, anything extended from Redmond. I think so. A good talent at this level. We've got an absolute plethora of wide players. There may even be more on the way. So I think there's capability there. I think talking about, I mentioned the Koleosho thing against City. The amount of times where he's looking across the line and there's that ability for him to spin in. And it'd have been in behind Lewis all day long with the right pass. But, it's just, do we want to be more direct? I don't know. But, just trusting the process and playing through the thirds as they like. You say there's no one, without Bayer, without Ekdal, you're not carrying it out from the back the same. You haven't got our Bellis's Steve Davis range of passing. And but I still think Jay will be effective. I'm not going to say he's going to score. I'm not going to say he'll score double figures, but he'll have an impact at some stage. It means a lot to him. I think he obviously he'd be desperate to sort of do well again at this level. And I think with his technical ability, his aerial ability, and his just sheer will and effort, I think he'll do well for Burnley. But they are short. We're still missing. I think we've all looked at the first two lineups this season and thought, it's just both been head scratchers. We've got square pegs in round holes. They've moved away from a little from what they were doing so well last season. Admittedly against elite opposition so far, but everything they did so well last year, and we've moved away from. There's no Muric in the starting 11. There's obviously no Barnes. Brownhill's been cast aside, having been one of the players of the season. One of the players of the championship. We've not seen much of Zarori and Benson as we've mentioned. Bayer, Harwood Bellis. Basically, the team that won the championship, it's less, probably less than half left, and 100 million later, the ninth highest net spending world football. Let's not forget, and we probably don't look as good, or as cohesive. I mean, it's this time last year when there's no cohesion. It took a real while to get into this stride with so many players. But you do wonder, have they brought in too many again? I'm not going to question. Company knows what he's doing. He shapes systems, personnel. He knows a damn sight more than I do. But it's all a bit, I don't know, a bit wishy-washy so far for me.
Yeah, and Woody, just touching on that, I mean, one of the words that gets bandied about on our WhatsApp group, we've been too cute. Do we think we're trying to be too cute? We're bringing in all these players. I said to somebody in the pub after the game yesterday, I don't think positions are really a concept that Company believes in very much at both ends of the field. Kind of your midfield is kind of, you've got Cullen as your defensive midfielder, but at the top end of the field, I don't think he really believes in traditional positions. Are we in danger of becoming a little bit too cute? And, we've not got the same amount of time to just kind of ease his way into it like we had last season.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, if you think this time last year, it took us 8 to 10 to 12 games to find our footing, which, instead of those being draws, those will be losses and will be anchored at the foot of the Premiership due to that. But it's like going through that process last season of almost relearning football as Burnley fans. We've never seen this before. To all of a sudden have that ripped asunder again, and then we're trying to work out, we still haven't worked out numbers on backs of shirts yet, let alone what systems we're playing, etc. And to your point, yes, it's all supposedly very fluid, etc. But, even the most idiotic fan, myself included, have been crying out for a left back. it's been as blatant as you know. And the second half yesterday, that's what he had to do. He had to bring Roberts over to the left hand side, and that's a tacit admission from Company that I'm assuming he's kind of got something wrong in relation to his system. Now, why the devil is he not seeing that from the get go when everybody else has managed to be able to see that? So it's like, yeah, we are playing to systems. We don't necessarily understand it as fans, I don't think, which is the frustrating piece. And taking last year's team and then seemingly kind of just throwing that aside, reworking everything again, just seems slightly confusing as a fan. But we've got no other choice but to see how it all transpires and, works its way out, which we may not have the luxury of doing as we did last year.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a break there, and when we come back, we will discuss the possible incomings and our kind of perfect shopping list, of which a left back will definitely be on there. We'll be back after this. So we have got less than a week, or less than a week, working week, really. Window shuts 11 p.m. on Friday. I fully expect that there will be plenty of both incomings and outgoings. We talked last week about outgoings and Bastion and people like that. Supposedly, I think somebody had posted a tweet to say that Matt, the chief executive, or whatever Matt's role at Burnley is, the guy who deals with all the transfers, was in the executive boxes yesterday doing a bit of a pre-match talk, and he was telling somebody that we tried for Nathan Teller. Of course, Nathan Teller has now been freed. Thanks, Ashlyn. I'm sure he'll be delighted with his new pad in Leverkusen, signed for Bayer Leverkusen. But he did say, look, he just became too expensive, did Teller. Maatsen, apparently Chelsea wanting to sign a 6-year deal before they send him out on loan. I did get told earlier today that there is a likelihood that he will take that option. So he will take the option of a lengthy contract and then be shipped out on loan, of which I'd presume we would be first choice. And I think that's probably why we've not gone for a left back. And Matt said, basically in this talk in one of the exec lounges that, we would expect 3 to 4 players coming in. I think it's well known that we're now back in the game for Mike Trezor from Genk. I think he was the player of the season in the Belgian top flight last year. But Justin, leaving aside the left back, because I think we've probably covered the left back more times than anything else on this podcast since we started it. What else do you think, having watched them first 2 games, where should the priority be? I mean, Trezor is another winger. just to kind of, we could have guessed that. But where else do you think we need to kind of plug some gaps?
I'm sure we're all going to say the same thing that we've been saying all summer, which is that we need a more mobile central midfielder to sit beside Cullen to break up things. Somebody who can get forward as well, but somebody who's more defensively minded than what we've got there at the moment. And we also need another striker, don't we? But as we said last week, that 15 goal a season striker is the player that everybody else is looking for as well. I think what we're going to do is probably leave the Premier League loans, the 2 Premier League loans, until a bit later, because everybody's still jockeying for position at the moment, trying to get into the right spot, aren't they? And play the other Premier League teams are a bit reluctant to let certain players go until they know where the pieces are going to fall. So it might end up going to the last day. But I think that those 2 players are going to be key. Those 2 Premier League players have got to be players who can come in and do a job straight away. You don't loan players from other Premier League clubs and not play them, do you? So I mean, hopefully, maybe we can get maybe the striker option there is going to be a young Premier League player who's perhaps not going to get a look in at the club they're in, who's going to come and have something to prove. That's what you hope, isn't it? That they come here wanting to prove something to their parent club. But yeah, those are the 2 positions to me that we need more strength, especially if we're going to play with this risky business up front. We need somebody who's aware what needs to happen the moment that turnover takes place and can pull that off as well. So it's got to be somebody who's quick and strong. So those are the two positions I think we need. If Matson comes back as left back, I'll be happy with that. But if he doesn't, then it's going to have to be somebody else there, isn't it?
Yeah, just in a world where perhaps we don't get Matson over the line, Chris. Again, somebody said on Twitter today, Sheffield United looking for a left back. Man United looking for a left back. Again, Justin said strikers, 15-goal strikers are in short supply. Left back as well seems to be quite a problematic position for a few clubs. Now, somebody on one of the message boards, I think it was on the Clarets, mentioned Matty Targett at Newcastle. I know he's not played very much. I think he only played 18 games last season. It's going to take a lot of skill in this kind of analytics system to identify somebody if we can't get Matson into it. Oh,
absolutely. You mentioned United. I mean, how many have they tried over time? That just, it's it has been problematic. I think Liverpool would say like Robertson's dipped, and it's I think they'd strengthen there if needs be. And there's a lot of clubs of City have played right backs at left back, and it seems to be an issue sort of maybe Europe wide, league wide. But I think if Matson's not, if that falls through, and what Chelsea with these 6, 7, 8 year contracts, it's just absolute, baffling, is it? But no, if Matson isn't the one that lands, then I honestly don't know where they turn. But we've meant, Bertrand wouldn't be. I brought his name up last week. You literally just clutching at straws because I don't think he's, the profile. He's too old. He's, does he get up and down, the left flank as effectively as he used to? Probably not. But I honestly don't know where you turn it. Fabrizio Romano suggests that, Bakayoko still, possibility. Brentford maybe keen for him, but again, it's another wide player. I see there's a few really, agents seem to be desperate to move on. The likes of Origi, and he's quite clearly another one that doesn't fit. The only part of the company profile is he's Belgian, isn't he? But I think he scored once for Milan in 12 months, and not the answer.
Oh, I was just going to say this. What you were saying about the left back situation there. This is one of the questions that I had after going back to the Villa game. The left back Delcroix, he wasn't playing that sort of left back who steps into midfield like Matson does. He was playing as a left back who came in as a left-sided central defender when we had the ball. Now, it's not my imagination to think that Charlie Taylor is sort of like we say sort of he can't play in the company system, but that seems to me like his perfect position, a left back who drops into the centre back. He wasn't even on the bench yesterday. I mean, I've checked. They haven't said he's injured or anything, but I just wonder what the thinking is there. You throw a guy in who's just come to the club. I mean, I know company knows him, but the rest of the players don't know him. You throw him in, 3 days after signing, and he gets skinned several times, and we've got a player who can literally do that role, who's tailor made for it, and we're not using him. So I just and he's also a player who's got massive Premier League experience, isn't he? Which we could have done with a bit of that yesterday, really.
No Ekdal on the bench yesterday either, so we kind of set up without Ekdal on the bench on Sunday. Sorry, and Chris, what do you make of the Taylor situation? I mean, it would seem to suggest that he's probably going to be one of the players who exits stage left at some point this week.
I mean, there's still a suggestion that he might return to Leeds. I think they'd be keen to take him on, and I can't argue with Justin. I say you've got a ready-made. If you don't want one of the if you want that side, that fullback on that side, just to be a defensive fullback, you don't want him bombing up and down, with every attack, in the opponent's half or dropping into that midfield slot. Then why not pick a man who Sean Dyche felt, and he's sincere, that he was not not a million miles from maybe the England camp looking at him 3 or 4 years ago. He's he's a good athlete, just a solid 7, 8 out of 10 man, and you pick a left-sided centre half who, by all accounts, has potential to be a very good, very dominant left-sided centre half, very proactive on the front foot, likes to, be aggressive and fine. But that just puzzled me. And if you're Charlie Taylor, you what is the point? You're just saying, right, well, I'm persona non grata here. I'm out the door, and there's no way back from him, is there? Yeah.
No. Woody, it does feel a little bit like the Matty Lawton situation last season, doesn't it? Where Lawton just didn't, I think on the video when they were having their picture taken, the squad picture, I think he jokes, at least I'm on the bench, because he stood on a bench for the picture. But it does feel a bit like that. And with a lot of the old guard as well, doesn't it? I mean, Brownhill, not a single minute of football yet this season. He seems to have fallen out of favour, as Chris said. PFA Team of the Year, I think, last year, or up for a place in that PFA Team of the Year. Superb, really found his feet in the Championship, scored some goals, which we're going to be looking at. Do you think that the old guard does have a role to play? I mean, arguably, I thought we looked better when Johan Berg Gudmundsson came on. He set the goal up with a header. Do you think there's a bit of kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? If I've got my kind of phrasing right there.
Yeah, it seems a weird one. Now, unless they're off somewhere, and yes, we've spoken about it before, you get the idea of if Brownhill's going to go in the last year of his contract, you get 10 to 15, then yeah, shake his hand, thanks for coming. But to completely freeze him out almost seems an extremely odd thing to do, And it's like with the fullback situation, it's not. Arsenal have Tierney that they're freezing out. You've got, Walker at City that's half being frozen out. It's like this kind of older school way of playing seems to have been discounted by the various new coaches, and they don't have a role to play at all. And I genuinely don't know where he's going with the idea of, Brownhill, Taylor, etc. I'm as baffled as Chris is and everybody else is as to why they wouldn't feature in some which way, shape, or form, as even just as a stopgap. So it just seems odd.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting, the players who were missing from that matchday squad yesterday. No Ekdal, no Taylor, no Odegaard. So we've clearly got. We were always going to have too many players to get in a matchday squad, but Taylor does seem the kind of the slightly stranger. The way he's been treated. But when we come back, we will talk a little bit about catering and a little bit about one of the most bizarre things I've seen on Turf Moor in recent times. So we'll be back after this. So, fresh from promises of a better match day experience during the summer, new caterers coming in. I reread the press release this morning about them working with local suppliers to come up with exciting new recipes for us all to enjoy. Shambolic, I think, is probably the best way to describe the match day experience yesterday on Sunday. Couldn't get a pie for love nor money before the game. Got a burnt pie at half time, queues longer than before, staff not trained to work till machines and new EPOS systems. Justin, I mean, the one good thing about it is that we were kind of wedged in on the concourse, and we were able to kind of say a very brief hello to each other before yesterday's game. But not a great experience, is it?
No, it was terrible. I mean, it's we're not blessed in the upper tier of the North Stand with the new interactive screen ordering points, so I can't comment on whether that works any better or not. But it's still, as far as I can tell, more or less the same offering that we had last season. It's long queues. It's people who aren't blessed with particularly sophisticated social skills manning the tills. And when I went down for a pie at half time, they weren't ready. They were still in the oven. And I could see this sort of group of women in the background pulling the pies out of the oven and sticking one of these electronic thermometers in to make sure that they were 2,000 degrees inside. And when they weren't, sort of panicking and throwing them back into the oven. Meanwhile, the queue behind me is getting longer and longer and longer. I don't know. It doesn't. It's certainly not improved. You could argue it's worse. Obviously, it's all rescued when you get your hands on one of those Doner sausage rolls, but they're a bit pricey as well, aren't they? So I don't know. I don't see anything. I don't see anything particularly different about it, and it was all a bit sort of frustrating and underwhelming. I don't know. The guy from the guy who runs what's he called, the fan experience boss. He wants to try and go on the, that Jerry Dawson bar and get himself a pie at half time and see what the experience is really like, because it's not all that impressive from where I was standing.
No, and it probably is. The experience is probably all right in the director's lounge, isn't it? And the chairman's lounge, where you're getting your foie gras and all that lot. Not that I'm jealous, but there we go. But this is the thing, isn't it? It's the same stuff as last year, but about 70 pence dearer. There's no food meal deals on. I mean, you don't even know. I mean, the screens change above. You've got it's like watching teletext when you were following a game on teletext or CFAX just to see what the price of the pie you want is, because they're just rattling through all the different offerings.
Yeah.
But yeah, not great. Now, the other thing from yesterday's game that I was baffled by was the sight of young mascots walking out with the players in 3-piece suits. Now, this is all obviously following on from, the club announcing Rocco. If they want to sponsor the podcast, then the kids look great. The new formal wear partner of Burnley Football Club. And at the minute, Rocco only make children's formal wear. But Chris, is there, we've seen a few bizarre sights on the turf over the years, especially around the kind of walkout and the pre-match. But kids in 3-piece formal wear accompanying players out onto the pitch. I mean, you're getting the piss taken out of you if you're one of them kids and you're going back into school after the summer holidays, aren't you?
I don't know what the deal is, but I would imagine if you're, do the mascots get to keep like strip and stuff like that these days?
Yeah, I believe from reading on Facebook, they got a kit and they also got this formal wear, which they get to keep.
That's can't knock that, can you? Now they all look like the reluctant nephews and nieces at a wedding. When you say we're going to throw confetti over the bride, and you're like, I'm a bit shy about that. It was all a bit surreal, wasn't it? Really, but to be honest, it's no issue, is it? If it's more money into the coffers, you're promoting the brand are getting the promotion that they pay for as well. I've no truck with it, to be honest. It is what it is. It's the modern game, isn't it? It's a bit of a gimmick, but fair enough. It's not something that stop me sleeping at night. Put it that way.
Woody, the suits all looked a bit Swiss Tony from where I was sat. They're a bit kind of like slightly shiny, slightly, don't stand too close to the fire, kids, because you might end up going up. You're our kind of dedicated follower of fashion on this podcast. What did you make of it?
I think one of those 2,000-degree pies, had they burst, would have been quite safe. They looked extremely well padded. And to be fair, they had been brilliantly tailored. I will give them that. They look very good on the TV. I couldn't work out what the fuck they were doing wearing them until you told me today. But I will say after that, immaculate, absolutely. But I think they could withstand a few hundred degrees quietly away.
Excellent. And I guess, Justin, the only thing that could have made it better for you is if it was done in the style of the late 70s V-shirt. The Clarets suit with perhaps, yellow lapels coming down into a V. That'd look pretty smart, wouldn't it?
If only. I tell you one thing I did notice about that. The boys were wearing blue suits and the girls were wearing pink suits, I think, which is not very progressive, is it?
I'd have wore a pink suit.
Yeah,
it's a bit gender stereotyping. We don't like to do that these days, do we?
Nice summer wedding with a pink suit, pair of loafers.
They did look very hyacinth bouquet, though. I would say that for them. It was all very Thatcher.
All very Thatcher in Burnley. Incredible. Damning with faint praise there from Woody sat in Cleveland. We were going to, before we go, we were going to just have a quick look at the Premier League table, but I think the only thing to say is Everton are bottom, 3 defeats in 3, 6 goals conceded, no goals scored. Whether Sean's going to be there when we play them in a few weeks' time remains to be seen. It doesn't look likely. We are still in the bottom 3 on goal difference, only 2 games played, of course, same as Luton. But yeah, hopefully by the time our next podcast comes out, I think we're going to try and get Sasha on just to give us a little kind of 10-minute update on Thursday night for Friday morning, and we perhaps might do an emergency podcast if anything massive happens, on late on Friday night. But yeah, let's leave it there for this week then. Thank you very much, chaps, Chris, Woody, and Justin. We'll be back with the normal podcast on Friday. Don't forget, follow us on social media, Twitter and Facebook. Just search for B-Hole Podcast. And don't forget to like, share, review, give us stars, give us whatever. Give us some feedback as well. You can usually catch us on social media or on Up the Clarets on the message board there. Until later in the week, see you later.